Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to What's Up With That, the show that brings you interesting people, places, cultures, and subcultures here in the South Bay, the San Francisco Bay Area, the state of California, and beyond. And tonight, what's up with Maker Faire? What is Maker Faire, and what might we experience when we go to Maker Faire? Well, let me tell you a story. About 8 years ago, a friend of mine asked me, Andrew, would you like to go to Burning Man? I said, well, what is Burning Man? And he said, well, you go to the desert, they build this man, and they burn it. Okay. I said, that sounds like a lot of fun. Maybe I'll skip out on this one. He said, but no, wait. There's a lot more things going on than just burning the man. A lot of cool things, creations, designs, automobiles that don't look like automobiles. And I said, wow, that sounds pretty cool. And it was cool. Well, a couple of years ago, a friend of mine said, Andrew, do you want to go to Maker Faire? And I said, what's Maker Faire? Thinking, it's like the Harvest Fair or something. And she said, no. This is really cool. It's kind of like Burning Man, but better. And it was. Less commercial, a lot more to see, and a lot more user-friendly. I mean, you could really get into it. So tonight we're going to talk about Maker Faire, and joining me is the director of Maker Faire. Please welcome Sherry Huss. She's director of Maker Faire.
Thank you, Andrew.
What's up? Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you.
So let's start talking about this. How did Maker Faire come into existence?
Maker Faire started, actually Maker Faire is part of O'Reilly Media, and O'Reilly is a tech book publisher that you may know, and about 5 years ago started with a magazine called Make Magazine, which was really kind of embracing the spirit of the old popular science, popular electronics, like how do you build a hovercraft in your basement? And
oh yeah, little things like that. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And, erector sets, things like that.
You got it. And Dale Doherty, who's a co-founder of O'Reilly, started tracking this trend that people like to make things, and they got into engineering because they like to make things, but in real life, they weren't doing it in their job. They're doing budgets and people. But the engineer type guys were actually doing it at home. So Make Magazine came and started.
They were closet creators.
Exactly, and really creating. So technology on your time is kind of the subtag. And Maker Faire, when we started it, the first one was in 2006 on Earth Day weekend. And it was really sort of a celebration and pulling in all these makers. And the cool thing about Maker Faire is that the people that make projects are there, so you can talk to them, like, what were you thinking, or where did you get that, or...
That was my experience. It was more like a hands-on kind of thing. And
exactly. But I'm married to an engineer, and I know that when you go to, like, the electronics stores, after about 5 minutes, you're like, okay, are we ready to go? So what we wanted to do was make sure that we created an event that kind of families could kind of tag along and find things that are of interest, too. And we find that most people that are into making probably have a family that's into making, but maybe food making or gardening or crafts. And so that's how we got started.
So it's pretty much, anything that you want to create, you can create.
Pretty much. We curate it, kind of like we curate the magazine, and we took over, we actually got to start and create it from scratch, which is totally cool, and we didn't want a convention center.
Right.
We wanted it, and there were certain things that we thought, well, if we start with this, we can kind of get it right. So we like the county fair model. We like that there is a time to get, there's a deadline.
Yeah.
You get to see different people inside and outside. So you can kind of build rockets and then go launch rockets. Yeah. And of course, being in the Bay Area, a lot of fire.
Yeah. And that's what I remember. I remember coming in and I was like, whew.
Absolutely. That was probably the Crucible folks for with their poofers. We had to move them this year. Some of the little kids got a little scared.
Growing up on a volcanic island, too, it was kind of like deja vu.
Absolutely. We had to kind of get the San Mateo Fire Department a little sensitized to that.
Oh, I bet. You're going to do what? Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, we're going to have some fire exhibits, but...
Exactly, but don't worry.
Be happy.
That's right. And let's not talk about SRL. But anyway, that was kind of how we started it. And instead of, when people say, what is Maker Faire? And I say it's kind of a combination of science fair meets county fair meets crafts fair meets farmer's market. And it's really, and it's hands-on, which nothing is hands-on anymore.
Right.
In fact, most places it's, they don't want you to touch anything. And we really, Dale really wants people to, learn how to solder or, feel things or kind of get to objects,
Right. And I bet the kids are just fascinated by it.
Kids love it, of all ages. We're finding really from 2 to, all the way up to 90 that people are... If you like to make or create, you'll like Maker Faire.
I know, it's awesome.
Which is good.
So how do you find the maker?
You know, it's an interesting process. We work a lot. You know, initially we went out and started talking to a lot of folks. And again, the Bay Area, we're lucky, and as in
Right.
Austin. But we try to find, and we're getting these community maker fairs where, you know, we're small and we can't be everywhere, and maker fairs sort
Yeah.
of bigger than life, but every community wants one.
Yeah.
So they're starting to pop up, and we're saying, great. I mean, O'Reilly's big in open source, and what we want to do is kind of have a maker fair in a box where communities, 25 makers, pull them together and get people making. But we look for different groups. We kind of, we added food making, which is kind of cool, and that kind of came out of Austin, interestingly enough. But
That's would be like my favorite one.
well, it's kind of great because some people think, well, I don't know how to solder and I don't care about robots. I mean, I like them, but I wouldn't want to make them. Or clothing, I don't know how to knit. But food, everyone has to make choices around food. And you'll start seeing things. Design is another thing that's kind of creeping in, and possibly architecture and alternative energy vehicles.
You know, but if you look at it though, they're all kind of interrelated. I mean, if you think about it, I mean, even when you cook, you're using math and you're using some kind of design and stuff.
Absolutely.
So I could see where it would all work. So you have the maker. Do they have a set of? Is there something that they have to?
So
a criteria that they have to meet?
We do have an application process, which is, and makers get to come for free. I mean, we're still kind of working with the model, but you know, makers are the talent, and they tell us a little bit about themselves. We found that, probably just like with the Burning Man community, that they don't want a whole lot of time. So for our May event, we open up our call to makers January, February. If we started too early, they'd probably forget that they submitted something. And we just ask them a little bit about their project and what their requirements are and what they're going to need, and we start curating it. So they tell us about themselves, they tell us about some other people in the community, and
So
we
it's
start
a
that process.
networking.
Kind of.
Yeah. And everybody knows somebody after a while, I'm sure. So it
Absolutely.
builds up a big...
Absolutely. And we kind of, you know, we're looking at new, one thing that's really new now is we're looking at New York, going to New York, and possibly having a World's Maker Fair on the site of the old World's Fairgrounds.
Which is really cool, by the way. That's a cool place. So
No, totally. And then also starting to look at, even we talked about, even like with food and sort of the immigrants that came to the United States, like what cultures bring to the kind of the physical things that they make, which is
really cool. Well, we're going to look at some footage right now.
Great.
Preparing for the Makers Fair, and we will check it out. So this is the preparation of the Makers Fair. I think you'll like it. Hi, we're back here with Sherry, the director of Maker Faire.
Yep.
And I was wondering, there was something you had said just a few minutes ago when we were talking about the process of getting a maker.
Yep.
Is there a maker brand that you're looking for? Is there a specific thing that you're looking for, or is it pretty much eclectic?
It's eclectic. I mean, we're looking, our big goal is to make makers. And the best thing is when, especially when little kids are leaving Maker Faire and you hear them saying, I'm going to go home and, I saw this and I'm going to do this. And it's kind of like a recipe. So they're taking different parts and they're going and making something that's their own. Then we've hit a home run if we can do that.
I can see they probably go home, and start creating like with what they have.
Absolutely.
The Legos and the,
absolutely.
I mean, that's the best toy ever made in the world, I think. But
absolutely.
It's a push for Lego. What happens when you get something that's questionable?
There have been so we're a family event. Right. So that's kind of our criteria. Is it appropriate for a family?
As opposed to Burning Man, which
is probably a little bit questionable. Right.
Yeah.
Right. So we just want to make sure that, it's kind of good, clean fun, and there's enough of that out there. So there's very few things, although, that we've rejected. And, they tend to be more adult type things.
Right.
But other than that, we're pretty open. The challenge going forward, though, will be, because we're getting so many and we have space constraints, just to make sure that, we have kind of a nice selection. So.
But how's it monitored, though? I mean, they might say something on paper, but what happens when they show up?
Makers are pretty cool.
Okay, that's
Actually,
good.
I have to say, this generosity of spirit, they're there and they're giving of their time and they're sharing knowledge and transferring information.
Yeah.
It's not about their intellectual property. It's cool. Like everything about this event, I've done corporate events. They're not cool.
No.
This event,
I can imagine.
Everyone's uptight and wound up. And this event, we have an incredible staff. They like being out. They love the energy of the kids. And even when we throw on our production team, Friday we're having education day, and they look at me like, Sherry, that's the day we're setting up with forklifts, heavy equipment, and you're bringing how many kids through here? Yeah. But they still work around it because they know it's so important. And a lot of that stuff isn't being taught in schools anymore.
Well, I know.
So, Maker Faire is a great place to make it happen. So
yeah, and I think the idea just to open minds. I mean, to open minds to something new, because there could be that person, and talking about the schools, they've cut so much stuff that there's that little spark that kid has.
Absolutely.
Would give them some empowerment.
Absolutely.
Power to the people. So you are the organizer.
Yes.
Oh, goodness gracious.
Yes, it's like herding cats sometimes.
How long does it take to put this thing together?
Well, we've built some systems. So we have a database of makers, which is great, and that tool actually helps we're a pretty small staff. I mean, I think the only full-time Maker Faire employee is me. And then we kind of, again, we start expanding.
The 120-hour work week?
Sometimes, yes. Wake up at 2 or 3 in the morning and work for a few hours, and absolutely. But we have a team that, we have a producer, Louise, who's great, and she comes on. She's pretty much there all year, but kind of about 6 months in advance, and a marketing person, and then we just start adding. We actually have really, really great people. That's the one thing with age.
Right.
You kind of can pick the best folks, and
well, you'd have to. I mean, you'd have to have a real concise staff.
Absolutely, and safety is our number one concern, because we know that if somebody gets hurt, especially because we're so hands-on, it's probably game over. So we really
it's doomsday.
Absolutely. So we have a whole safety plan, and we have a lot of the folks that work Burning Man.
Right.
A lot of the crew. It kind of works out really nice.
So yeah, so they're used to the whole
they got
kind of get up.
Absolutely. So it's it's actually been pretty good. And the making of it, we learn a lot, and every time we learn more, and we want to keep adding new subjects and new things. But
so you start prepping probably the day after the last one ended.
Well, the past couple of years we've been doing Austin, so we've pretty much ended San Mateo and just went right into Austin. But really, we were looking for things like venue. We're looking to expand it, and this year we're trying to help communities. So people that are out there, and I'm in Ann Arbor, Michigan, for example. A group, I think it was GoTech, actually did a Maker Faire last weekend, and
which I could see in Ann Arbor would be a great place for it. Yeah.
And we're also looking at Detroit, which is sort of an interesting area where there's a lot of kind of like the heartland of innovation.
Right.
And we're finding that there's kind of looking at creative ways to sort of help stimulate the economy.
Yeah.
So.
They could use it.
but it's more than Detroit. We're getting a lot of people that email me and say, well, I'm in Buffalo and we've got the same thing, or I'm in the Midwest. And so it's kind of, and especially with you, kind of Obama this year saying, we need to kind of talk to the doers, the makers of things. This group feels like they're really being talked to, and that it's our game to win or lose. So
there's what's the clientele that you target?
For attendees,
Yeah.
you know, we're looking for people that are actually genuinely interested in things. So how things are made, or actually kind of taking apart things. We tend to have a lot of families, and you know, again, the Bay Area is very unique. We're kind of rich in a lot of areas, but people that have a curiosity and want to learn and sort of absorb knowledge.
Right.
So it's a pretty good group.
I mean, I think everybody should go, because I think people really don't know what they're missing.
Absolutely.
For one thing, and
Absolutely.
and there will be something that will spark something
Right.
inside them that a lot of people just don't allow themselves to let.
That's right.
To bring out. And
Well, and even if you don't make, you can go and appreciate. We have entertainment as well. We have the Diet Coke and Mentos guys that put on a show. We have the Life-Size Mousetrap, which is brilliant.
Is awesome.
Totally. And
I saw that thing is just awesome.
I could watch it every
I know,
time.
It's
I mean,
just so cool.
The spirit behind that is great. We have cycle sides, so there's pedal power amusement rides. So even if you're afraid to make, there are things that you can do that you're going to just go in to enjoy and watch people. Never Was Hall, the whole steampunk.
Well, the whole thing about it was that I remember was, you know, every place you went, I was excited, because I'm like, what am I going to see in here?
Right.
You know,
Absolutely.
the little kid in me came out. I'm like, oh, okay, I got to see this.
Well, you know, it's one of the things we get. A lot of people want to know, where's the map? We want a map of knowing where everything is. And we've tried to do, that's probably our biggest challenge. We're trying to get better to kind of locate people in quadrants. But part of it's like, do you need a map? I mean, you have a map all week.
Yeah, exactly.
So kind of maybe just walk around the corner and find something that you never thought you were going to find.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, that's good. I mean, the mentality should be discovery, you know.
That's it.
And that's what I did, you know.
Exactly.
I didn't need a map. It was a lot of fun.
Yep.
So you must have an immensely huge volunteer staff in this.
It's growing, and we learned about volunteers actually, you know, from a big part in Austin, because Austin's a big event town, and we were able to. The volunteer staff is growing. They're great. We need them. They make it happen, and their enthusiasm, and they come back. You know, like they sign up for one shift, and it's like, I want to be here again.
Yeah.
And we treat them well too. Yeah. We treat them well. We treat the makers well, but they all treat us well too.
Right.
You know, it's one of those things.
It's kind of a give and take, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, we're going to look at some photos now of the Maker Faire, and you're going to find some really cool things, and it's going to make you want to go. So check out the photos, and we'll talk about some of the stuff you saw. Totally awesome stuff. We'll be seeing you there. Tell me, so what kinds of things might people expect to see? Can we talk a little bit about it?
Absolutely. I mean, you'll probably see photos, but there's rockets. There's robots. I mean, we have all sorts of robots, from fighting combat robots to firefighting robots to R2-D2.
Right. And it's so big with the whole Star Wars.
And the giraffe.
The giraffe.
Have you seen the 17-foot giraffe? Russell, who it was a project that Lindsay Lawler from San Diego had a small-scale giraffe, and it's become his passion. Actually, he took it to Burning Man originally, and now it's turned into a walking giraffe. It walks around the fairgrounds.
How cool is that?
It's very cool.
That's
very cool.
So cool.
And steampunk, you'll see steampunk, you'll see crafters of all sorts. Some people selling things, other people making things, and like the Swaparama Rama, which is a clothing swap where you can reconstruct, deconstruct, and folks love that.
Yeah.
To
it's so cool. I mean, it's just
Yeah, and we have something called Make Play Day, which is the simplest thing. It's old electronics that it's a room filled with them and engineers and soldering irons, and kids are making things. Some things work, some things don't.
But that's a process, though.
Absolutely,
you know?
absolutely, and just taking apart too. The other thing we like is even failure. I mean, that's kind of celebrated amongst makers because you have to kind of fail to sort of keep going and learn.
Well, I
to
think
move forward.
That's true in life, you know.
That's true. That's true.
So finding a place,
Yes.
you know, and the permits and all that
Yes.
stuff. Being there, you know, when I came in and I saw the crucible,
Yep.
and I thought, well, this must be a little difficult,
Yep.
perhaps.
Yep.
You must be pretty savvy with this.
You know, we keep learning. And this past year we worked with Dominican University, the Green MBA program, because the prior year we had issues with traffic. And it was crazy because it was Kentucky Derby weekend and it was too much traffic in one area. And of course, nobody believed that we were going to get the crowds that we get. So we've worked with like the Silicon Valley Bike Coalition. So last year we parked 300 bikes, this year 1,600. We're working to set
so
metrics, and we
that's
want
cool.
people to come alternative transportation. We have Paul from Rock the Bike that starts in Dolores Park, and I think there were like 200 bikers that rode their bike from Dolores Park to San Francisco to Maker Faire. So we want to encourage people to think differently about getting there, you know, conserve and the environment as much as possible, and
So what's the coolest thing you've ever seen at Maker's Faire?
You know, this is a hard one because honestly, it's all cool to different folks. And we've had James Burgett's large head made out of recycled parts. I don't know if you've seen that.
I saw the head made out of books at Burning Man. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the large scale art is great, and then there's some small, beautiful things. I mean, we even had gentlemen that had a slide rule collection. But they're so proud.
Oh, cool, yeah.
You know, it's just the
and they probably have a lot of knowledge about this stuff, and,
Absolutely.
and old knowledge
Absolutely.
that's not passed on anymore.
No, it's very true. We went to, I mean, we're looking at venues, and we went to another fair, and you kind of walk around, and again, the vibrancy here is the people. I mean,
you
can
definitely.
go to a museum. I mean, it's the same thing. You can go to a museum and see a lot of cool stuff, but you don't know the context of it.
Yeah.
Like who made it or what were they thinking?
Yeah.
And
I mean, sometimes you go to a museum and they're like,
exactly.
you know,
That's true.
I went to a brand new museum and I felt like, oh my God,
Yep.
you know, they're following me around.
Yep.
It's like, this isn't fun.
Yep. We have music, marching bands are cool. We have a marching band. I mean, in Austin we had Mukapazo, which was an amazing marching band that can kind of, you know, weave through the fairground.
And the cupcakes.
The Acme Muffineering.
Yeah.
They're beautiful. Everyone loves those.
Uh-huh.
Absolutely.
Just want to eat them.
There's so much to see. So much to see.
I know.
And,
I loved it when the cupcakes came down. So that was just,
exactly.
that was great. It was like a greeting committee from Sara Lee, you know?
Exactly. And if you haven't, yeah, you need to come into Maker Faire to just see those guys. Too.
Yeah, I mean, so has there ever been a situation that just didn't work?
Like what?
I mean, like logistically, you couldn't pull it off.
Well,
Fire marshal said no.
Well, this year that we had Christian Risto had the Hand of Man. Have you seen the hand that kind of crushes thing? We thought that it wasn't going to work, but we worked together with the makers. Like Louise, who's our producer, spends a lot of time. We probably know that fairground better than the people that run it because we're really looking like the model warship guys. I mean, they built a pond. That's a whole case where, and I think they've been on your show completely, you know, and they've just come to life and got whole new members from that and just kind of helping them out. But we're kind of we need a bigger venue for sure.
Yeah.
And we'd love to have camping.
Right.
Because it kind of carries on. Some people like to stay there, the makers and whatnot. It's a little bit hard.
It also lends more time for people than the makers to actually
and interact
share
and
ideas.
Network. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You know. We try to do that a little bit on Friday to get the makers together, but they're so you know, into getting their project set up that it's hard.
Do you ever have like rivalries there? Or?
We haven't, no.
Yeah. See, that's great.
But we thought, you know, one of the things we have, you know, the big thing we need also is sponsors. We, you know, again, we put a lot of money into the makers, which is great. They need a lot more. I mean, they're not getting it. It's just for like transportation and gas and propane. It's not really anything like, for what they're doing.
Right. It's just like a passion for them.
So any sponsors, we're always looking for that. But yeah, it's a great event. It's an honor to work on it because you get to go, you know, get to meet the makers. You get to go to their studios to see them. You're working with the community to try to bring it together, and really everyone is everyone's happy.
And I think what you realize when you go to an event like Maker Faire is that there's so much out there.
Right.
You know, and that we tend, I mean, I see so many people in the world who live literally in a shoebox.
That's right.
You know,
That's right.
They're too afraid to step out.
Right.
You know, they don't want
Right.
to go see something to make it fair. Now, that sounds too weird to me.
Right.
You know,
But it's not, and some of the ideas are so simple. Like that's the our part is, the hard part is just organizing and getting people there. Once we're there, the magic happens when the interactions start happening between people.
Yeah.
And that's
the beauty of it.
That is beautiful. Yeah.
So we're getting close to the end of the show. What do you hope to accomplish with Maker Faire?
Right. Well, we want to make makers, and we want to keep this going, and we want to kind of get awareness for people that are kind of making. We'd love to have more making in schools, and as your teacher, the traditional curriculum always doesn't touch every student.
Like not very many.
Exactly. And think about things that inspired you as a kid. There was a mentor or someone that that maybe made something, did something, and so that's kind of our big goal. And we'd like to get it out there. We'd love everyone to carry kind of the torch of making and. There are makers everywhere, and they're tinkers, they're in garages. They just don't come out and share it, and we want to bring it out again, because that's kind of made innovation, creativity.
And I see that, a lot, almost every day when a kid will come up with something, and he's explaining the process, and when he starts explaining, I'm like, wow.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're going to be a maker. Absolutely. All right, well, keep up the good work, and hopefully all our viewers will make it to the Maker Faire this year.
That's great.
Hopefully public transit, by bicycle, think green. And again, it's just about creating. We have to be creative people.
Yep.
Sometimes our lives, we find ourselves in a rut, and we need to step out and start making something new. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Andrew. Appreciate it.
Keep up the good work.
Great.
Keep on making the makers. And to our viewing audience, as always, if you're walking down the street and you see something interesting, like some cupcakes rolling down the street, and you wonder to yourself, hey, what's up with that? Well, tune into our show, What's Up With That, and maybe you'll find exactly what you're looking for. We'll see you next week on What's Up With That. Good night, everybody.